Welcome back to an episode of Clutch Gene Sports. I'm your host, Marco Martinez, with my guy, Josh Harper. How's it going, man?
What up, Marco? What's going on? Vote for Marco, man. I seen the standings. Let's go. We going for Marco.
And that thing's funny. Every year they put it out. Every year, my guy over there puts it out, and I'm like, I don't like doing these things. Like, I'm not competitive when it comes to like other content creators.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, man, hopefully I lose first round, so I don't got to worry about that.
Man, look, it's a lot of content creators who's taking that serious right now. You know it.
Absolutely, I don't.
You know it.
People are definitely trying to make sure they get that number one spot or whatever. I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm definitely not one of those people. I hope I lose. Hopefully, one of the. Hopefully, you know what I want? I want one of the ladies to win it. Like I
Nice. That'd be
truly like
nice.
one of the ladies to win it. Let them.
Yeah.
Um,
There's some good
because
ones.
to be honest, I really don't. What it does bring though, it does bring a lot of eyes and attention to a lot
Mhm.
of the content creators. Some of the ones that are coming up, some of the newer ones. So I think that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, I'm not. I don't see myself in that realm with a lot of those guys. I
Mhm.
should not be on that board with like guys like Croc and stuff like that. I shouldn't be up there. So the fact that I'm up there, that's cool. But today's show going a little bit different, not necessarily Niner centric. Um, we're gonna be doing a little bit different, ranking the top 10 or 15 receivers in the NFL. But before we get to that, the Niners just signed Joshua Dobbs, backup quarterback, and it looks like he's going to be on the roster. And a lot of initially, people were like, "Oh, now he gets to compete." He's getting 2.25 million fully guaranteed. That looks like backup money to me. What are your thoughts initially on Josh Dobbs signing to the Niners?
I like it. You seen what Dobbs was able to do. He was able to keep the Vikings afloat. I know his tenure there didn't finish as he probably wanted it to, but it started really well. He was able to keep them afloat and give them a chance. And before they made the quarterback switch, now we're not expecting him to come in and and be the starter, right? We have Brock, but barring an injury, I have a little bit of confidence that he's a vet. He's done it. He had some meaningful games last year. And you're not going to get the fan base talking about play Dobbs, play Dobbs. Purdy had a bad game, play Dobbs. Now the other guy, Zach Wilson, if he was to come in, I think that could create some type of churn and some negativity between the fan base, and it could just be a lot of noise. But with Dobbs, we know what we're getting. We're getting a backup quarterback. He is what he is. He's been in the league for some time, and he was able to keep the Vikings afloat for a little bit.
So you did mention Zach Wilson. What I kind of wanted to bring that up. So I know a lot of people on the timeline, 49ers timeline, wanted the Niners to make that trade.
Mm.
What would you have said if the Niners ended up trading a 6th or 7th round pick for Zach Wilson after sending off Trey Lance for a 4th rounder this upcoming draft? But when you look at things like they didn't really let Trey Lance develop, let him
Mm.
start 3 games, played in 8, didn't really play. But then we've seen what Zach Wilson is. We've seen him over a long stretch of time. If they were to trade for him, what would that tell you if they had traded for him in terms of Kyle Shanahan, his thought process, John Lynch's thought process, stuff like that?
Um, I would say that they still liked the traits that they saw coming out. They feel like he has. If they made the trade, I feel like they would think, okay, we can work with this. We have our guy, we have Brock Purdy, but we do love these traits. We saw what they loved about Sam Darnold, right? So I think that they'll come in and say, okay, let's just see what we have. We know what we wanted coming out. We seen him coming out. We liked him coming out, but he wasn't there for us. So let's give it another shot. That's what I would think. I wouldn't think anything like there that he's coming in to compete with Brock Purdy, anything like that. No, not a second, not a chance, right? But they like traits. You see, Darnold has traits. Zach Wilson has traits, but neither one has been able to put it together, and neither one threatened the job of Brock Purdy.
So you did also mention like there would have been like talks where people were like, if Brock Purdy had one bad game, well, let's see what Zach Wilson could do. I know I'm one of the ones where I said it on a show with Ashley on my Friday show. We were talking about it, and I was like, you know what? it was last year during the season. I was like, Zach Wilson's low-key done wrong. Like, he hasn't had that great of an offensive system.
Mm.
Has good receivers. He's had Garrett Wilson over there. But I was like, I honestly truly do believe Kyle Shanahan would be able to get the best out of him. And I think he would be putting up similar numbers. If not, the offense would still be rolling with Zach Wilson as it has with Brock Purdy. And because of those traits, I think Kyle would tailor his offensive game plan and system to a guy like Zach Wilson. Now, I'm glad he did go Josh Dobbs because I'm truly one of those believers where your backup quarterback should solely be watching film, making sure your starting quarterback is right in terms of film. Um, so when he comes off the field, you're already telling him, hey, this is what I've seen, but XYZ. While you're on the field, this is what they're trying to do to you. And I think that's what Josh Dobbs is, an extremely smart quarterback. I remember the show that John Gruden used to do, the QB Camp School on ESPN. When I was growing up, I thought that was the coolest show I could ever watch because you get to see quarterbacks go up there, receivers go up there and break film down. And Josh Dobbs, one of the biggest things that I took from Josh Dobbs during that show was his IQ going up there. And he was like, this ain't rocket science. Rocket
Right.
science is a lot harder. He's like, this is simple. He obviously is a rocket scientist and whatnot for NASA and stuff like that. So that's what I'm excited about, getting the IQ in the building. So now Brock is going to be surrounded by two good quarterbacks when it comes to IQ. Brandon Allen, a journeyman backup quarterback. Josh Dobbs has proven. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Now, the fun part comes where we get to rank receivers. Now, for those who don't know, you're a hell of a receiver in your playing days. Obviously, at Fresno State, played in the league. So this, for me, the reason why I brought this up was like, you know what? I want to do a little bit different stuff too on the show, not just Niners centric.
Yeah.
However, it does tie into some of the 49ers stuff in terms of they have two really good receivers. So for me, I'm definitely trying to see where the Niners receivers rank in your eyes. Obviously, I'm expecting maybe possibly one of them to be in that range. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's tough.
So let's get started with it. I know. I'll let you go first. We could either go down from 10 to 1 or 15 to 1, or do you want to go from 1 and then just keep going down, which makes it easier for both of us?
You want to do it? You want to go 5 and then 5 and then 5 and your 5, my 5, your 5, my 5. The next,
Yeah,
how you want to do it?
Either way, we could go back and forth. We could go either way, just so we could talk about that receiver either way.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but you want to go top the number 1 receiver in the NFL right now first?
Let's go number 1 receiver in the NFL right now first. Or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go top. Let's go to top receiver first. I'll let you go first on the number 1 receiver in the National Football League right now as it stands. And this is, like I said, for me, this holds a lot more weight when it comes from you versus someone on Twitter saying, because you played in the league, you know how hard it is to play receiver. You know what it is to play receiver. So this is what I'm most excited about right now.
All right, my number 1. Y'all can say bias, whatever. It's not. My number 1 receiver is Davante Adams. Yes.
You went straight for the homie.
To this day. If you see the type of coverages he has to deal with, you'll understand. And he's still, playing at a high level to this day. And he's still getting covered, double covered, bracketed. He's the main focus on the Raiders offense, right? He's dealt with rookie quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo, and we've seen what he did with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen what he did with who else was there with the Raiders? The rookie,
they had O'Connell.
Even Hoyer was in at one point, right? So we've seen what he was able to do. He still had a good year, for a receiver in the NFL. I mean, not quite the standards of a Davante Adams, but he can do it all. Off the ball, one-on-one man coverage. He's not really getting that in the NFL at the highest level. He's still not really getting man-to-man coverage, right? When he does, we see what he does with it. So there's nothing to say there. You can argue it all you want, but as a receiver, he is number 1 in the NFL.
And what's crazy is a lot of these young bucks coming up, like a lot of the young receivers coming up into the league, they're trying to mold their game after Tay Adams. Like you watch what Tay does off the line of scrimmage. He whoops people's ass left and right. Like to be straight up like one of the best route runners I've seen. If you're pressing him, you better make sure you get your hands on him because he's gonna make you look like a fool. Um, and what's crazy, he does it without like blazing speed. It's like so as coach, he definitely and people who don't know Coach Dub, like he definitely one of the things I took from Coach Dub of like learning from him as he talks is he always says have a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I
Always.
noticed with Tay Adams is he has a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Other receivers you see them get to the line of scrimmage and they know their alignment, their assignment, but they don't know how to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing that does separate him and puts him in. I think he's a top 10 receiver. I don't have him at 1. I do
Mm-hmm.
have Justin Jefferson at 1.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Justin Jefferson's
Yeah.
beyond phenomenal. Like when he's fully healthy and he has a veteran quarterback or a quarterback that could get him the ball, elite route runner.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of things similar to Jefferson as they do Adams in terms of coveraging, bracketing them. They still find ways to get open. They're just crafty route runners. Now, the thing is with receiver is you still have to block.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson isn't the greatest of blockers.
Yeah.
Tay Adams is a much better blocker.
Right.
But I'm not paying my receivers to block, man. I'm paying them to catch passes, and that's where they get money.
Exactly.
So for me, Jefferson on the board at 1 for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's around the most complete receiver. He has the speed, he has the route running ability. So for me, that's 1. Who's your number 2?
My 2 is easily Justin Jefferson. Like you said, he's the other receiver that gets those. There's about 3 receivers in the NFL who get these crazy coverages, and they're the main focus of the offense, right? Of the defense, right? And it's to stop that player, and they still do what they do. So we're not to get ahead of myself, but it's the 3 is Devontae, Justin Jefferson, and Tyreek Hill. Those 3, they come in with coverages focusing on those 3 receivers right there. So that's why it's so much to try to stop them, and that's why I have them up there. But Justin Jefferson is my 2. What the types of catches he makes in double coverage, most famously the one last year in the playoffs. To it was a big one. It was like 4th down, I want to say, right? One-handed over like 2 or 3 defenders. He's still young, and he's going to be good for a long time. He has the speed, like you said, he has the talent, but he doesn't have to win off of that. He's a route runner. He can get open off the line. He has a plan. Like you said, he has a plan when he gets up to the line. And he's rarely, if I ever seen it, getting one-on-one coverages. So Justin Jefferson is my number 2, and he'll be number 1. He'll be number 1 soon.
He's getting there.
He's getting there.
He's getting there. He's following after Tay's footsteps. For me, number 2, and I think more so the reason why I have this guy at number 2, I think him and my number 2 and 3 are very interchangeable. The reason why I have him at number 2 is his team isn't in the playoffs without him. He's completely changing games left and right. I have Tyreek Hill at number 2. I think Tyreek, the way he just changes the game completely with his speed, it's just different. Like I had never seen speed like that. Obviously, people say Randy Moss was better when it came to the speed, like that deep speed. But I saw Randy at the end of his career. So Tyreek every year putting up numbers. But for me, the biggest thing is he changes offenses. 1,700 yards back-to-back years. The Dolphins aren't a playoff team without him because if you don't have Tyreek Hill on that team, and let's say you have a decent receiver on that team, you are not getting as much separation for Jalen Waddle. Your run game isn't as great because defenses cannot stack the box if Tyreek Hill's on the field. So
Not
for
at
me,
all.
Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, and that's what. And I'm not. I know people are gonna be like, "Oh, what about off the?" I don't know off the field issues. I'm not doing that. So Tyreek is at number 2 for me.
Nice. So I mean, and like I said, those 3 are interchangeable for me. And that's why I have Tyreek at number 3. 1, you can't teach the speed that he has, and not just the speed that he has. His playing speed is much faster than anybody that I've ever seen. I don't know if you've seen anybody's play speed as fast as Tyreek Hill. You can mention him, but I've just never seen it. And he can also run routes. Now he doesn't have the hands that the other two have, Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. And that's why I may have him at 3. He just doesn't have those natural hands, but he can change the game just like that. He can have 2 catches for 17 yards all the way up into the fourth quarter and end with 5 catches for 150 yards, right? So he's that explosive. He's that dangerous with the ball. He's dangerous without the ball. There's always going to be somebody over the top. When there's not, if there's a busted coverage, you're going to see him, doing the peace sign on the way to the end zone and nobody's catching him. So he just has something that you can't teach. And again, he's one of those players that he works with Coach Dub as well, and you can tell he has a plan when he gets up to the line of scrimmage. What release, how's the defense covering you, what are we going to do, things like that. How are we going to attack this defensive back? So and you can see it, right? So Tyreek Hill is number 3, and again, those 3 can be interchangeable. I wouldn't be mad who's 1, who's 2, who's 3.
Do you think Tyreek made the wrong decision going to Miami and not staying with Mahomes? Like in terms of his numbers, I know he said Tua's the most accurate quarterback he's ever played with. People took that the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think he made the wrong decision going to Miami?
As far as winning rings, yes. But then you look back last year, he was on pace to break a record. It was Randy Moss's record, or what was it? It was somebody's record that he was on pace to break. And again, he ended up getting injured, and that slowed it down. But I mean, he's gonna put up numbers with whoever, whether that's Tua. It would be much more beautiful if he was with Mahomes, obviously. But he's still producing, man, and teams are gonna find ways to get him the ball, regardless of who his quarterback is. Because I want to say when Tua got hurt last year, he was still producing. He was still putting up numbers with. I believe he was a rookie quarterback, Skylar Thompson or something like that.
Skylar Thompson,
Yeah, and he was still doing his thing, right? So he's just one of those players that if you get him the ball, if you throw it out there, let him go get it, he's gonna make something happen.
So for me, my third receivers is obviously Devontae Adams. Man, Raiders, please do me a favor and go get him a quarterback.
Go get a quarterback.
Go get a quarterback for him. Like, don't waste the final years of one of the best receivers we've ever seen. Like, to me, that's the biggest thing is when you watch Devontae. My favorite thing about him is his route running ability, but I just love how he don't complain, man. Like, you see a lot of he wants the ball, he wants to change the game, but he's one of those receivers where he's not going to care. He doesn't complain and beg for the ball like some of the other receivers in the top 3 for me. But for him, it's Mr. Consistent. Every year, you know what you're getting out of him. I love how he led his team last year. That's one of the biggest things where I thought was phenomenal last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a coaching situation, GM situation. He was ready to get the hell up out of there. Like, if you gonna keep having that kind of head coach and GM, a very toxic environment, get me out of here.
Yeah.
They changed things around. They rally around the head coach. And it was because of Tay Adams, in my opinion. When you look at how he was speaking, how he was rallying his troops, that's what a true leader was. For me, he's at number 3. Like you said earlier, one of the best route runners in the game. Really good blocker. For me, just get him a damn quarterback this year because I'm not trying to see him have to go through a bad quarterback situation. I know he went to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr, his college quarterback. But as soon as Carr left, their quarterback situation went downhill real quick. Who's number 4 for you?
Yeah, this might surprise some people, and it may not surprise some people. He had a really good year this year, and I think he's a special receiver. And I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb at number 4.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is you and I have not talked. So so
Not
for
at all,
those who are aware, so I text Josh earlier, like, hey, we're gonna do top 10 to 15 receivers. I don't want to talk to him about it because I don't want it to change my rankings. What's crazy is I have CeeDee Lamb at 4 too. I think he is up there. He's maybe taking up number 3 or 2 within the next few years for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and all I can remember is we could have had CD Lamb, right? And I did he start slow? He might have started slow. I'm just like, okay, maybe it's not too bad of a out of a draft choice. And he just started picking up steam, and he had a really good year last year. And I'm not just basing it solely off last year. I'm just basing it off a combination of everything. And I think CD Lamb is special. He's good with the ball after the catch. He's also you're going to see a big thing in my top 10, top 15 route running. And CeeDee Lamb is one of those guys who he can run routes, but he also is special with the ball after the catch, right? So yeah, CeeDee Lamb is my 4, and he's one of those deceptively fast players. So he may not look like the fastest, but he gets it done. He gets it done.
And for CD, so it was crazy. His rookie year, kind of similar to, like you said, to a Niners receiver, Brandon Aiyuk, same draft class.
Mm.
Started out slow. He finishes that rookie year with 900 yards,
Mm.
and he just took off since they got rid of Amari Cooper. He got rid of
Yep.
Amari Cooper, and then he just started ascending. For
Mm.
the last 3 years, 1,000+ yards. Last year, 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns. He took over games for the Cowboys. Like there was times where you knew where Dak was going, but you could not stop it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what elite level receivers do, and it sucks because he's a Cowboy. It truly does
Yeah,
suck because he's a Cowboy. And as a Niners fan, I don't like seeing the Cowboys have a top player or top anything at any level.
Mm-hmm.
But he truly is one of the best route runners in the NFL.
Yeah.
When I watched him, what's crazy is in college, he was a salesman, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he's gotten became a better route runner. Like he could sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah,
That's how good of
I
a
like
route
that.
runner he is right now, because
I like that.
he truly is. Like every movement, his head snapping, like the details. In
Mm-hmm.
college, it was more so his athleticism, and he was using that. Now it's the little details that he's using in his route running.
Mm-hmm.
The head snap, boom, boom, hitting the blind spots on corners. I'm like, okay, now you truly understand the concept of route running. We saw that last year when they would try to bracket him, and he
Mm-hmm.
was still beating the bracket coverage. So for me, CD Lamb he may take the top 3 within the next year, because he's truly gonna get paid by the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're holding off. He shouldn't get paid until he should be one of the second to last guy.
Yeah.
It'll be him get paid, and then right after that, Jefferson's getting paid. But
Yeah,
he deservedly so. He deserves that money.
for sure. 100%. 100%.
So now we're at receiver 5, and you could go off on 5.
Number 5, receiver 5. Another one. I think this might be surprising to people, but this is one of my favorite receiver play styles. And I'll just say it's Keenan Allen. So he probably had his best year this year. As a NFL player, and he's on the other side of 30. So that just says a lot. And the difference was this year he stayed healthy, right? So when you talk about getting in somebody's blind spot, and you talk about running routes that he doesn't run a traditional route. He runs it how he runs it. The only other player that I can think of who runs routes or who ran routes like this is Stevie Johnson. I don't know if you remember that name,
Yeah.
but they're pretty similar in the way they run routes. It's kind of like they're playing basketball out there, and as long as they're in the right spot, go ahead and do what you got to do, and just be on the same timing as the quarterback. And it takes a lot for a coach to give you that type of freedom, right? Because any wrong movement, any bad timing, and boom, that could be interception. That can be good going the other way. But he's top 2 route runners in the NFL, and he's been that for a long time. And he's clutch. Third down, he can play inside. I think that's where he's best at. Third down, if you want to get a first down, go to Keenan Allen. If he can play outside as well. The only thing that he may be missing is that big play speed. But he can still get down the field, and he can make a contested catch or two. But what I love about him is I love his route running, like top 2.
I explain this like every other show. It's a hat. I'm a Giants fan, but it's a hat. Like
oh yeah, you're messing with
it's
like
a hat. Yeah, it's a hat. Like even like people always ask me, like I'm out and about wearing it. Why you? Why? It's just a hat. Like I don't. I'm not gonna stop a nice hat from putting on my head.
That's a
But
popular hat though. Like, everybody wears
yeah,
it. Now you
everyone
gotta wear
wears
it
it
like,
one because it's a clean hat. For
yeah,
me, what's crazy about Keenan Allen is the fact that you brought up. It looks like he's playing basketball out there.
yeah. Mhm.
So when I first started watching film to find like my receiver, what I'm looking for in a receiver when I'm drafting, when I'm scouting, I started watching Keenan Allen, and
Mhm.
because of the route running ability. And one thing I noticed, like Stevie Johnson, Stevie Johnson is one of the guys, one of the OGs put me. He was like, "Hey, make sure if you're gonna be scouting, you're gonna be looking for guys, go
Mhm.
watch Stevie Johnson in terms of a route runner." And they both, like you said, play with a basketball in hand. They have a
Mhm.
crossover behind the back, and
Mhm.
at first I started watching. I'm like, wait, these dudes hoop. Like if on a basketball court they could hoop, like you could tell. And what's crazy is that's one thing I noticed right away. Like, oh, they hitting them with a crossover behind the back, and they're literally doing it as they're playing basketball
Mhm.
on a football field. And that's one of the craziest things I've seen. And you don't see many people do it because they can't truly do it. Like
Right.
it's
Exactly.
it's hard.
Exactly.
Um, my number 5, it may be a little too early to have him in the top 5, um, but I think he's up there. I think this dude is a good route runner.
Mhm.
He's physical. He has this good enough speed. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I
Mhm.
think Amon-Ra is up there in the top 5, similar to guys like CD, where you knew where Jared Goff was going almost every freaking play.
Mhm.
Like if it was a pass play, you better have eyes on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Put up 1,500 yards last year, 10 touchdowns.
Mhm.
For me, I think he is ascending. I hope they get him some help. Hopefully Jameson could step up and be that number 2 to him. But I truly think Amon-Ra St. Brown, with all his abilities, a good route runner, savvy when it comes to over the middle, taking hits, very physical in that category. But for me, he just truly knows how to play the game. And he's one of those guys where you could give him an end around like Deebo Samuel, but he's healthy. So
Mhm.
for me, he's it may be a little bit too maybe a little too early to have him in the top 5, but I think for me, he's in that top 5 just because everything he brings to a team.
Mhm.
That's who I have at top 5. I got Amon Ra at number 5.
Yeah, I mean, and we're at the area where you can go any way from 5 to 10. You can go any way. So it's all preference. So, and I love St. Brown, man. Like you said, anything third and whatever, you know where golf is going, but he's tough. He can make the catch over the middle, and he's not a big dude. So for him to not have any fear going over the middle, make that catch, but also make something happen with the ball in his hands as well. I like St. Brown.
And what's crazy is with St. Brown, like a lot of times, like you see USC receivers come out, and there's been like a lot of people they'll scout the helmet, right? Oh, USC
Mhm,
receivers, they're not that
mhm,
good. XYZ. They did it with Pittman. I
mhm.
thought he should have been a first rounder. They
Yeah.
did it with Amon Ra. Him coming out, I the same exact thing. Like he's gonna be a really good player.
Mhm.
Stop scouting. People need to stop scouting the helmet, man. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they did it. They do it way too often. Um, but for me, I have them at 5. Number 6, I'm very curious who you're gonna go number 6 because there's a couple of guys when I'm thinking about. I'm like, dang, these guys are falling on your board
Yeah.
at receiver, and
Yeah.
there's some dudes that could ball.
It's gonna be a few names that fall and you'll be surprised, but hey, but at 6, I kind of went away from the route running, the traditional type of receiver to somebody who's just a monster. He's a beast, and what he does, a lot of people can't do, and that's AJ Brown. AJ Brown is wide receiver 6. He's a big receiver. He could take the top off, and he can make those contested catches down the field, and I think that's one of the reasons that make him so special. But also, he can take a slant to the house as well, and I'm not talking just off pure speed, but he'll stiff somebody or break a tackle, and take off. So he's my 6, and just like I said, he's not the greatest route runner. He's not in my top 5 route runners, top 10 route runners. I don't think he's that good of a route runner, but he can get by. He can get by with the routes that he has. But he's just a grown man, kind of like a DK Metcalf, but he's just not as fast, obviously. But he's a grown man, and he makes DBs smaller than what they are. So I'm gonna go with AJ Brown at number 6.
At number 6, he's like you said, very similar player. And I shouldn't say similar player, but a player that uses his freaky athleticism and his crazy speed to
Mm,
win, not necessarily a route runner.
mm,
People try to say he's a route runner, but when you truly go watch the film, people are like, I'm not going to sit here and let you tell me he's a route runner when he's rounding all his routes and
yeah,
like not sinking his hips. For me, that's Jamar Chase.
yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
so you right away you knew who because
Uh,
not really sinking the hips, not really a true route runner. Not
mm,
as like what we mean by route runners is guys who could sell their routes, know how to sink their hips,
mm,
actually be a true route runner. With him, he wins by his crazy speed. He wins by physicality. So
mm,
I do have Jamar Chase at 6. It is similar to you how you're like I'm going away from the route running,
mm,
but it's because of that crazy athleticism. A guy who could take an end around 80 yards, take a slant 80 yards.
mm,
Um, for me, I just really wish Jamar Chase would get in the lab,
yeah.
start running. So because he has everything it takes
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, to be one the best receiver in the league. Like he's not. I don't understand how he's not that good of a route runner at his
Mm,
size. Like AJ Brown, I get because he's what 225, 230,
yeah, yeah.
solid on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Chase, I don't think he's that big. Like, I mean, I could be wrong though, because he is kind of, but 6 foot, probably 215. That'd be my guess. I mean, look,
Mm-hmm.
they have him at 201 on the
201.
Bengals site. So 6 foot 201, and you're not that great of a route runner.
Yeah.
For me, get in the lab, you become a better route runner. Now your
Mm,
whole team kind of gets better because your route running ability opens so many things up. For example, we just talked about Adams, Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. Their route running and what they're able to do as a route runner
mhm.
opens up so much for their offense. I
Yeah.
want him to be that route runner, but hell of a player and without even being a great route runner.
Right. Right. Nah, yeah. Like everything you said about Jamar Chase is 100% true. Like I said, I hope he gets in the lab, man, because he can be special. He has that one top three, 1, 2. He has that type of potential. And he's shown it. He's shown it. He just needs to, add that, feature to his play style. But 7, we're on 7.
Yeah, and then what's
Yeah.
crazy is before we go to 7, what's
Mhm.
crazy is Jamar Chase came into the league and that was his best season.
Yeah.
Like if we're
Kyler.
truly like that's what's crazy is like team players and coaches are catching up to him because of his route running ability.
Mhm.
Like as a corner, you have so much film. All right, I know as soon as that chest gets high, you're breaking. Like
Yeah.
you're not selling nothing to me. Yes, you're stepping on my toes, but I'm not afraid for you to get by me because I
Mhm.
know you're not. I know that's what you're not doing. So for him, that's the biggest issue for him, and that's why we've seen him kind of decline. Not necessarily decline, but
Mhm.
haven't like added to that rookie year plus injury. So that's
Yeah.
why for me he's at about 6. So we're at 7 now.
7. All right, 7. We're going to go to someone who used to be. I mean, again, and all these players are, they at one point in time they were all possibly in that top 5 range. But 7, I got Cooper Cup. He's just man, he's just a magician, man. Like he knows how to get open. Um, I don't ever think he's not open. He's one of those players who also gets double coverage. And he's another player that changes the defensive scheme. Like and until Puka might change that for him. Puka might give
Oh
him a
yeah,
lot of a lot of one-on-ones, right? But again, Cooper Cup like that. Cooper
you're
Cup was
killing
in
me.
my top 3, man. But things happen, injuries happen, and he's dealt with a few injuries, but he does everything. He does everything the right way. He's a good blocker. Uh, he can make the big plays as well. But anything in between that 10 to 20 range, man, he's money. Cooper Cup is money, and I even seen this year he was getting end rounds. So there he can do a lot of stuff. And triple crown winner. Like, come on, man. Like this, if this dude can stay healthy again and give, I think he can do another season like that. He's that good. So just he's just not in my top 5 today. But Cooper Cup. 6
And
or
what sucks
7.
with Cooper Cup is his injury history. Because if not,
Yeah.
like man, that 2021 season, that Triple Crown season that he had was crazy. I have not like I think he was close to breaking he was like 18 yards from breaking Calvin Johnson's single season record,
Mhm.
which is crazy because we see Tyreek Hill do it, but
Yeah.
Tyreek does it a completely different way.
Different
Like
way,
he does
yeah.
it like so it's what's crazy. You see a lot of these receivers are able to do similar things, but on their own way.
Mhm.
For me, 7, I have Keenan Allen, one of the master route runners. I'm just very curious when it comes to Keenan Allen, how he's going to produce with Caleb Williams. So we know they're going receiver 1.
Yeah.
Everyone's expecting it to be Caleb Williams,
Mhm.
but that's
Mhm.
a great receiver to have as a safety net. Like,
Yep.
hey, I'm going to you, get open, and he
Yep.
knows how to do it. So for me, that I'm curious when you're an elite route runner or elite receiver, do you think it's going to affect him going and playing with a rookie?
So no, it shouldn't. If Caleb Williams is who we think he is, I mean, we've seen with Stroud. Stroud boosted his receivers. Nico Collins did not have the year he had this year without Stroud, right? So Stroud boosted his receivers. If Caleb Williams can come in and play um, a little, like just a little bit as good as CJ Stroud did, Keenan Allen will be fine. Keenan is gonna be open. It's just on Caleb Williams and the coaching staff to have some timing patterns and get Keenan Allen the ball over the middle, corner routes, out routes, and get it to him on time. Right? The separation is going to be there. We've seen it throughout his career, so it shouldn't affect him.
I hope it doesn't, because man, it sucks. Like he had the option. He
Yeah.
chose Chicago over
Mhm.
Houston, and then that's what a report said.
Mhm.
So that's crazy. Like that means he
Yeah.
has a lot of belief in Caleb
Caleb
Williams or
Williams.
whoever's going to be at quarterback.
Yeah.
Do you think? Quick question. So
Mhm.
if you're being traded to a team like Chicago, right?
Mhm.
Chicago's obviously on the phone with him because they were trying to restructure his contract. He said no.
Mhm.
Do you think they told him we're going Caleb at 1?
I think, man, I think you kind of have to, right? If he had the option to pick and where out of these two or three teams, right? If he had the option to pick, I think you have to get on the phone and tell him like, hey, Fields isn't the guy. We're looking at these quarterbacks, Caleb. We're looking at whoever the number, things like that. I think you had to run it by him, not say like it's for sure we're going Caleb. But they had to run it by him. Like, man, we're looking at some other options. Fields is an option. This Williams is an option. I think they had to say it like that. They had to.
Right? Because like you're not going over there to play. No offense to Justin Fields, but you're not
Yeah.
going over there to play with Justin Fields,
Huh.
knowing what he's done with receivers and
Yeah.
how he doesn't throw over the middle. That's where Keenan eats. So like for
Yeah.
me, I'm like, I think they had to tell him, hey, Caleb's gonna be your guy. So
Yeah.
for me, that's what's interesting. Now you're at 8. So
Mhm.
just to replay it, you had starting from 5, you had Keenan Allen. Actually,
Mhm.
we'll go from the top.
Mhm.
Number 1, you had Tay Adams,
Mhm.
Jefferson at 2, Hill at 3, CeeDee Lamb at 4, Keenan Allen at 5, AJ
Mhm.
Brown at 6, and at 7 you had Cooper Kupp. And on
Mhm.
my end, I had number 1 Jefferson, Tyreek, Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, and Keenan Allen.
Yeah. All right. So we're at 8. I'm man, this was tough. But I had to go another old head just because he quietly has a great year every single year that he's been in the NFL. I don't know if you know, but it's Mike Evans, man. Like he's like the most consistent receiver still in today. It's like the current out of all the current receivers, he's the most consistent. You know what you're gonna get out of Mike Evans. Um, he has durability issues, but it still doesn't stop him from getting 1,000 yards. He's a red zone threat. He's still gonna be that. He can make the tough catches. I could have put him a little lower on the list, but he's just too consistent. He's a good blocker when he wants to be. He's not a route runner, but he'll make the tough grabs over the middle. And then that 9 route, that's always going to be there for him. A big body guy. So I had to go Mike Evans with the next one.
Yeah, when you have 10 consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards, and in 10 seasons you have, I believe he has like 90 something, 95 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah,
Like he's in my top 10 too, but not at
yeah,
not at the next spot. But for
Mhm.
me, what's crazy is listening to Johnny Manziel when they were in college. It was like I used to look at him and actually just throw a peace sign. I used to give him a peace sign, and he knew 9 ball. It's like
Yeah, go
he
get
like
it.
he knew go get it, peace sign. So that's when you have that ability. Like when every receiver in the top 10 has something they do that is great,
Mhm.
and he is that 9 ball 50-50 guy.
Yeah,
He makes it a 80-20. Hell of a receiver.
yeah.
At number 8, I have AJ Brown.
Mhm.
And again, starts getting hard once you start getting towards the end. It's like
Mhm.
these dudes they take over games. They're really really good receivers. But again, I prefer a route runner,
Yeah.
and this is why for me with AJ Brown, I wouldn't say he's necessarily a terrible route runner. He could beat man to man with his
Mhm.
ability, with his speed and strength. Good enough route runner to sink his hips, enough to be able to sell some routes.
Mhm.
But just put him on a crossing route, put him on a dig, let him go eat like
Mhm.
a route that he doesn't have to truly run a great route, and he can just beat you with his physicality and his speed. To be honest, he changes the way Philly plays, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for him, Philly would not be in a lot of games. Like truly, like to be honest with you, like he is that good of a receiver. I'm just curious how now they have a lot of mouths to feed with Saquon,
Yeah.
Devonta
Mhm.
Smith, him. Going to be interesting to see how his production becomes. Does he
Mhm.
stay that dominant receiver? And what's crazy is there's a receiver that's falling, and I'm very curious on from your side. I'm very curious to see where he lands. And
He's
a lot
next.
of people, what I'm talking about
Wait, for me or did
for
you already
you, for
mention him?
you.
You already
No, I
mentioned
have
him?
not meant. I have not.
Okay, no. Oh, I know who you're talking about. No, he's not in my top 10.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
So you're at number 9 now. So my AJ Brown was number 8 for me.
Mhm. And 9 again. This dude, I wish he just gets in the lab. I wish he starts. I wish he would get with Coach Doug and get his route running right. At least at 10%. Get his route running right, man, because he has the ability to change games, and that's Jamar Chase. He's just an animal with the ball in his hands, and he's also one of those 50-50 ball guys where you can throw it up there and you can expect him to make the play, and if he doesn't, you're like, dang, he didn't make that. So he's one of those type of players that again and you can get the ball in his hands, get it on a slant, and he'll go score. Again, I mentioned Tyreek Hill is one of those dudes who can have two catches in the fourth quarter, but end with 6 for 150. I think Jamar Chase is that same type of player. All it takes is one play, and he can blow the game open. So I just hope he's a top 3 receiver if he just puts it all together, stays healthy, and gets in that lab as a route runner.
For me, the next one was hard because there's some guys I do like out there. Um, but for me, you have to be able to be extremely consistent, take over the game, and not allow for other things to take you out of a game.
Mm,
Like so there's a guy he fell out of my top 10, and I know who you're talking about
yeah.
after you started talking about it. But for me, the next guy I have is Cooper Kupp. I do
Mm,
have Cooper Kupp at 9. You're such a good route runner, changes the game, ability like crazy. If him and Puka stay healthy, they might be one of the better 1-2 punches in the
mhm,
NFL. Like that's where it
mhm,
gets dangerous for the Niners because now Matthew Stafford has a good O line.
mhm.
Now they did lose Aaron Donald, so their offense has to get better.
Yeah.
They have a good running back, good run game. So Cooper Kupp, he could, if he stays healthy, he could go for one of those big years again. He's capable of doing that any year. For him, it's just injuries have killed his career in a way because started out then it didn't get too crazy his first 2 years, and then he started going berserk. But
Mhm,
then injuries were in the way, and that if he could stay healthy, that 2021 season again, one of the better seasons I've seen from a receiver. At number 10, I'm curious to who you have.
Man, so I was up in arms, with the number 10. Um, One of the guys was the one you had him in your top 5. Um, I just want to, yeah, this was tough, but again, I went with somebody who's consistent, who really does change games, and he'll go for 250, 220. but he just doesn't do it enough. And that's what's so frustrating to me because he should be a top 5 receiver easily. And that's Amari Cooper. It's just his I don't know what it is. Maybe I think it's his mentality. Like if I don't think he has that. I don't want to say that dog. Does he have that dog in him? Like that every play or every game he wants to go for 200? He has that type of ability, and he's had that type of ability throughout his whole career. And you see it every year. Every year you'll look up and Amari Cooper got 250 yards, 2 touchdown game, right? And I just wonder why doesn't it happen all the time? He's one of the best route runners that I've ever seen. He's one of the best route runners in this current NFL. He has the speed. He's a big body. He can take hits. I just wish he put it all together and had that dog in him that made him want to just go out every game and just kill the other opponent, the other DB or the DB that's across from him. But he doesn't do it every game. And I'm not saying go out there and have 200 yards every game, but it could be more consistent than what he does. So, but Mark Cooper is my 10.
And I think more than anything, I wouldn't say necessarily that dog in him, but like the last part you said, consistency.
Yeah.
Just go out there and be consistent. Run your routes the way you normally do.
Mm-hmm.
He half-asses a lot of routes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like ain't no corner in the world gonna buy that route. You're half-assing it. So for me, that you are right in the sense of, does he have that dog? Like, because any player that takes a play off or two, like, hey, bro, that's a play where you could seriously injure yourself. One, two, that's film that'll always be on your career. Like, so that you get to take you have to take these blows when people talk about you because you're putting that out there, and the eye in the sky don't lie.
Yeah.
Number 10, I got Mike Evans, man. What's crazy with Mike Evans is he's always been one of my favorite receivers because of how consistent he is. At Texas A&M, tearing dudes up in the SEC, him and Johnny Manziel freaking going crazy, berserk. That was some fun times in the SEC. And then he goes to Tampa. Don't know who his quarterbacks were to start his career. Can't name one of them. Goes crazy on with every single one of them. He gets Tom Brady. They go and win a ring together. But the fact that you have 10,000 plus yards, 5 touchdowns in 10 years, the fact that you don't allow injuries to affect you, and then what's crazy is a lot of the years that he's not getting, like some of the years that he's gotten over 1,000 yards, he's gotten it like by 5 yards. Like, but he got the 1,000 yards because he's But he wants. Steve said, what about top 5 blocking receivers? Well, top 5 blocking receivers, I mean, there's dudes who don't even play who are better blockers than most dudes in the league.
Right.
And then we got Brother Bob said, how do we F up draft picks before drafting? I don't know, Brother Bob. Someone in the 49ers department decided to go to Cabo and not report it. That's what I'm expecting. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. Never seen any franchise truly lose a draft pick because their numbers were messed up. That's crazy.
Wait, what happened?
So the Niners lost a draft pick. So their draft pick in the 3rd round or 4th round, their comp pick got moved 4 spots this year, and then they lose their 5th rounder next year because they failed to report numbers or something like that. I'm not too sure what happened. Like, it's to me, like,
goodness.
How do you fail to report something? One, like, you are checking your books constantly.
Right.
Something sounds fishy. I wouldn't be surprised if someone got fired. Someone took an extra couple $100,000 to go on a family vacation to Bora Bora or something. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. Now we went through the top 10, and there's still some really good receivers out there. I'm very curious. We could go through the top 15, but I know we're at the 50-minute mark. I just want to ask you a couple questions now.
Yeah, ask me.
Where's Stephon Diggs in your rankings?
Stephon Diggs is, I got him after St. Brown, Aiyuk.
Okay, so you have St. Brown at what, 11?
11, and then Diggs. No, St. Brown, Aiyuk, Diggs.
Aiyuk, and then Diggs.
Yep.
I'm surprised. See, I'm glad you didn't have same Diggs in your top 10.
Yeah,
And
that's the popular name to have in your top 10, but
but
he's not in the
how can you truly as Stephon Diggs, right?
Mhm,
And I know a lot of people because of the name, they love him. Obviously, he's a
mhm,
really good receiver. But how do you truly have games where you get taken out of the game completely? You're not running routes great. You can't really say that it's your quarterback's fault because you have an elite quarterback. But there's games where he has like 25 yards, 30 yards. But what's crazy about it, it's not just the yards, it's the impact. He has no impact on some of these games, even when he's being shut down by really good corners. So for me, I'm glad you didn't have Diggs in that
mhm,
top 10.
and he's getting the targets. He's getting the targets. That's what's crazy. He's getting the targets. So,
I'm glad you didn't have him there. And then you had Aiyuk at 12.
mhm.
Where would Deebo fall if you had a ranking and you had to put Deebo in there
So
outside the
Deebo,
20?
so that's tough. Let me see. So, I mean, after Ayuk, I got a DJ Moore because what he did with Justin Fields was special, and he's a really good receiver. And then you got the Nico Collins, Olave Wilson, that group right there. Um, but I think Debo is a tier below that. I would say Debo is
Okay.
like a tier below that,
So
or
then if
maybe no, yeah, a tier below the Nico Collins, Olave Wilson,
so you
tier
just
below that.
named so we're at 13. So then you
Mhm.
named Nico Collins, you named Olave, you named Garrett Wilson. Anyone else?
Here, let's see. I can go down. Um, you got
What about
Pittman.
Jalen Waddle? Would you put Jalen Waddle ahead of
No, I
you
would.
put Michael Pittman?
Yeah, I would put Pittman, but yeah, I would put Pittman. I would put. It depends what you want, and like DK Metcalf.
What about Terry? What about Scary Terry?
Scary Terry's good, man. Scary Terry's good.
Better than Debo?
He See, now that's where yeah, but that's where you get to what do you want? Do you want an all around gadgety, do it all type of receiver, or do you want a strictly receiver who's going to go out and get you, 7 to 8 catches a game? What do you want? So that's what I'm picking Scary Terry above him.
So you're taking Scary Terry above. And the
Yeah,
thing is, too, though, is like Debo isn't getting paid like a gadget receiver, right? He's getting
he's
paid
getting
like a
paid.
receiver.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like when we look at that stuff, it's like, does that play a factor into what a receiver should be getting? Because he's up there. If you look at Debo's contract, right? One,
Yeah.
two, three, four. He's the seventh highest paid receiver.
See, you got I would put him in the Waddle category. So like Waddle, um, right. So I'll go Waddle, Debo, and then like the Ridleys, Godwin, Hopkins. So he's in that bunch of group. He's in that bunch right there.
So you almost have him in that top, like around 20,
20, 25, top 25 ish.
top 20,
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
So can the Niners afford to pay Brandon Aiyuk, you have at number 12, and
Mhm.
Deebo, who you have at number 20, 25-ish, roughly, depending on if we were truly to actually sit down and do the ranking? Obviously, we didn't go that far into the
Mhm.
ranking. But should they pay both of them as a top 5, top 10 receivers? Because the Niners, they have to make a decision. Aiyuk needs to get paid.
Mhm.
Now, he's a top in your rankings, he's a top 12 receiver. Now, just the way that contracts work and the way when you re-up, he's gonna make top 10 receiver money.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially with guys like T. Higgins looking to get paid, CeeDee Lamb, numbers are gonna keep going up.
Yeah.
So we're obviously gonna see Brandon Ayuk's numbers skyrocket. But can they truly look at both of them and pay a guy like Ayuk and Deebo? Like, is it worth it to pay a Deebo that much money?
Man, so when it's time to pay Purdy, I don't think you'll be able to keep both of those. You're gonna have to round the roster out and spread that money out. The D line is already getting paid crazily, or are they still getting paid crazily with Hargrave, Bosa?
So
Uh,
the cap numbers dropped. The D line
okay,
is getting
got
paid
with
crazy,
Eric.
but
Yeah,
the numbers dropped, so it's not doesn't look as bad when it
yeah,
comes to like the cap numbers, but they're still getting paid good money.
But I mean, this the way Kyle runs his offense, you don't need two top paid receivers to run a functional offense with Kyle. So I don't think you need to keep both receivers at that high number. I think I prefer Aiyuk. Aiyuk and Purdy have a great connection. I think you go out if the numbers if the numbers make it this way. I think you go out and find a replacement for Deebo. And whenever there's an out in that contract, you do that. Um, so I definitely pay Aiyuk for sure, 100%.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because, well, missed it by one. So there's supposedly some rumors. The Jags, I know a Jags reporter. She tweeted out a couple of days ago that Jags called the Niners, and then she said that the Niners asked for pick 17 and Zay Jones. In return, Jags would get Brandon Aiyuk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that's false. The Niners said no when they asked if Aiyuk was available. I asked around, and I was told no. Niners said no. Like,
Yeah,
that's literally what
for
like,
sure. Yeah.
like, hey, was this the offer? And they're like, no. Niners said no.
Yeah.
And even if it was, they were saying 17 would probably be the best the Niners could get. Like right now,
Yeah.
truly right now, that's the best pick they'll probably get.
Yeah.
But the Niners don't want to move Aiyuk. They understand his value to the team. Do you think Aiyuk is worth a top 20 pick in the NFL with how deep the receiver class is? I know you haven't probably dug deep into the draft class yet.
I need to, but I haven't. But I mean, if you got to really like how they identified Aiyuk and he became what he is today, right? They identified it, they believed in him, and they saw a vision of what he could be, and he is that, right? If they have somebody in mind that they truly believe in, you can do it. But I think you have what you want. Like you drafted Aiyuk. He's home like he's homegrown. Like you keep this guy and you keep building with him, right? Because if you trade Aiyuk for the let's say the number 20th pick, and you go get a receiver and he doesn't pan out, then what are we doing? You save the money, but now I mean, now what?
And I think that's the biggest thing is I know like a lot of people were like, well, Deebo does things that no receiver can. I disagree. I think Curtis Samuel could do a lot of things Deebo does.
Yes, yeah. Not
like,
as
right,
well,
like, so,
but he can.
Not as well, but he
Yeah.
can. Like he could do those gadget style of stuff. And so for me, I'm looking at things. I'm like, I don't think Deebo is worth the big payday. And I think as soon as they can, I mean, if you got to eat money now and you got to get a pick, you could replace Deebo a lot faster than you can Aiyuk because of the route running ability. So for me, it was cool to see your top 10. So for those who are just showing up, J Hart pad at number 1, and I'm just gonna go down the list. Take Adams, Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, St. Brown at 11, Aiyuk, 49ers Aiyuk at number 12, and then Stephon Diggs at 13. Do you think the Niners should draft the receiver earlier in the draft than obviously you haven't watched it, you're just saying, but is it something they should plan on to move off of Deebo next year? Do you think it's hard for a rookie? So for example, if the Niners, the reason why I'm asking this, I'll give you a little more context. So if the Niners take a rookie this year and they have Deebo on their roster, that rookie doesn't have to step up immediately. He doesn't have to carry a lot of load as a number 2 receiver or number 3. He would be your number 4 receiver, bearing anything, like because you really have Jawan Jennings on the roster. So if anything, he's your receiver 4. Versus if you take a receiver next year high in the draft class after you trade Deebo, that guy is going to be thrown into the fire immediately. Is it harder for a receiver to do that, or is it easier to come in and learn like the true game at the NFL level, the different coverages and stuff like that? What do you think was the best route for the 49ers to go in drafting a receiver to replace Deebo Samuel?
I think it goes back and you know they have to identify and see what the value is, right? So that's you know if they get to pick 30, 31, whatever it is, and they see the tackle or guard that they want to draft, they have to take that tackle or guard. You know, second round, if they see somebody who they really believe that can take over for Deebo after he's gone, then they have to make that selection if they feel everything else can wait. But if they don't feel like there's that receiver on the board, you go You go into next year, then you got to look at the next year's class and say who on this next year's draft class board that we feel like can come in and contribute right away. I mean, that's just what they have to do, right? So I don't think they need to force it this year. It would be lovely to come in and let a receiver who you feel comfortable with learn under Deebo, learn behind Aiyuk and Jennings, and slowly come along. But don't force it, right? Next year's class may be better. They may think next year's class is better, and they may have to wait till next year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one receiver I know because you mentioned the reason why I'm bringing this receiver up is you mentioned Nico Collins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want me and Jay Harp to take a look at them, I know he plans on looking at receivers soon. Yeah. That's his expertise. I really like Cornelius Johnson out of Michigan.
Okay,
4.5 speed, 6'2", 6'3" guy.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of a Nico Collins. And like what's crazy is Nico Collins wasn't Nico Collins until he developed into Nico Collins.
Right.
Like it wasn't like he didn't just come in year one right away and then like boom, he's oh snap. Like they got an elite receiver, obviously drafted in the 3rd round. Year one came up slowly, year 2 slowly. Last year with the legit quarterback, skyrocket, took off. Cornelius Johnson, I think he's a little bit older in this draft class. You could have him a little bit later. But just some of his draft, like his combine stuff, 4.45 40, 1.5 10-yard split, 1.55 10-yard split, vertical jump 37.5, broad jump 10.7. So the athlete's there. He's 6'3". I don't know if he did the short 3-cone or the short shuttle or anything like that. Those to me tell me kind of the movement, but I was able to get some film from the Shrine Bowl, which what sucks is when you get film from like these bowl games is after a certain amount of time it locks and you can't really watch it. So I'm like, God damn, damn it. Like I wish I would have been able to like save that somehow. But he was showing the ability to sink his hips and do stuff. And I'm like, man, like he's a perfect late round candidate. That you could draft and you could develop. So when I watched him, my favorite parts is his athleticism, his NFL body. He has upside. Physical traits are there. The only issue is his limited. He has no limited career production at Michigan. You could kind of see some hip tightness here and there, but as a 6'3" receiver, you're gonna have hip tightness. Like it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. But he's one of my later round guys that if I was in the draft room and I had to pound the table for a late round receiver, he's that guy.
Okay. I'm gonna have to take a look at him.
Well, that's it for today's episode. We ranked the top 10. We got the final 2 or 3 from Jay Harp, so we can see where Brandon Aiyuk landed. Deebo Samuel in the top 20 to 25 range for Jay Harp. Now, there's no knock on Deebo. It's just he's looking at true receivers, and Deebo isn't that. But that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining me today, Jay Harp. I appreciate you, my man.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.